Hey, welcome to the MML Podcast. My name is Alex Bennett. Thank you guys so much for joining us. It's another solo adventure for me. No Robin just yet, but what I wanted to do today is I actually wanted to go and do kind of a continuation of the last podcast episode that I did. So in the last podcast episode, if you didn't tune in, basically I talked about kind of the five, that's how you do the number 5, rubrics that I use when evaluating students and seeing where they're at in their progression. And so I talked a lot about like technical ability, which was the category number 1. Second category was like song, chord, and rhythmic knowledge. Category number 3 was music theory. Category number 4 was ear training, and category number 5 was creativity. And so I wanted to basically take these next few podcast episodes and kind of go more in depth on what I mean by all of those. I want to spend some time talking about like what the details are, what the common pitfalls are, and how I would recommend people getting out of those common pitfalls, right? So starting in order of these, I'm just going to go with number 1, which is technical ability. Now, technical ability, I think, is how many people evaluate just their overall playing. Like that's like the number 1. It's what can you do when you get your hands and your fingers and your limbs, whatever it is that you need for your instrument to work, to actually do what you tell them to do. And it's understandable why, because it takes a lot of training, right? Like dexterity is very different than just pure strength. Dexterity is about the finite control. It's not just about what you're pressing, but it's also about what you're relaxing. And so people use this as a great demonstrator for like how naturally good am I at my instrument. And so there are some people who have naturally very good dexterity. They just have a lot of like fine motor skills, great control. It's just the truth. Everybody has something that they're naturally good at, and some people are just naturally dexterous, and that's okay, right? For the rest of us who are not naturally dexterous, I'm going to talk about the most common things that I see that are usually holding people back. So one, let's just start by defining dexterity a little bit better. I mentioned that it's about what you press and what you don't press. So for example, your hands each have just shy of about 40 muscles inside of them. I think it's like 38, something like that. Don't quote me on that exact number. But let's say for this argument, it's 38, right? If I was to play the guitar, I only need really about like 3 or 4 muscles to be able to hold down and press a string on the guitar. But most beginners, when I watch them play, they'll press one note and the rest of their fingers go shooting out like this, which tells me that there's a lot of tension stuck inside their hands. So even though they only need a small number of muscles, like 3 or 4, they're activating like all the rest of the muscles in the back of their hand, which shows me that they don't have a lot of dexterity and control between them, right? I also see a lot in guitar players, they'll say, I don't know how to stretch between these notes. So I'll ask them, I'll say, well, can you stretch your hand like this? And the truth is that almost all of them can stretch their hands just as far as I can, or at least pretty darn close, right? And then I say, well, why is it that you can't reach these notes? Because you're having trouble stretching even just 1 or 2 frets, and I can stretch like 4 or 5. And the truth is that for me, when I hold down a fret on the guitar, I'm able to relax all the rest of the muscles in my hand, and that allows me to be able to stretch higher quickly, right? But for them, when they press, they also activate the muscles that keep their hands, their fingers closed together. And so that makes it harder for them to make those. So they're assuming that they have like some sort of deficiency, when the truth is that they just haven't learned how to control their fine motor muscles in a very efficient manner. And so what I'm describing sounds really easy on paper, but in fact, it is incredibly difficult. And many times your hands or your limbs, they get caught up in different ways, right? So for every instrument has those troubles, right? If you're playing piano, you have many of the similar issues that we have on guitar. If you're playing drums, you're having to deal with like all 4 of your limbs. So you have to deal with both hands and both feet. And so that's an even like crazier amount of muscles that are happening there. And they're not all just fine motor muscles too. Some of them are even like bigger muscles. They're hip flexor muscles, they're calf muscles, and the muscles in your toes and your feet and things like that to be able to use your legs. And then for a lot of vocalists, they're having to deal with like tension in their neck, tension in their shoulders and their chest, and like going up their jawline. There's a lot of extra stuff where they try to belt out and you see all the veins in their neck pop out. And it's like, you don't need those muscles to be able to do it. And that's often making it harder on them. They're running out of breath quicker. They're getting like really weird vowels and enunciations for vocalists. So most of good playing and high dexterity is not about what you use, but it's actually more about what you don't use. It's a high level of efficiency. That's why when you watch professional musicians and they're playing at a high level, you watch them and you go, gosh, they make it look so easy. Right, because they're using only the muscles that are absolutely necessary. They're using only the bare minimum it takes to be able to achieve that high-end status, that high-end goal. So that's what you're missing out on. Now again, easier said than done, right? That's like saying it's easy to balance on a skateboard. I have fallen on my face many times trying to ride a skateboard because I do not have a great sense of balance, and there are a lot of fine motor skills and stuff that are that are required in order to be able to balance on a skateboard. That's just the way it is, right? But for the rest of us, for those people who can do it, right? They understand that certain things have to be relaxed, certain things have to be flexed, and that's how you keep your balance really well. So that's like one of the number one things that I see. Now, the other one is the ability to like break down your problems into fine itty-bitty pieces. Many times, the reason I see people get stuck on a portion or a passage or, can't get their hands working the way that they want them to is usually because they're trying to tackle too much at one time. So let's take, for example, you're a piano player, right? And if you're trying to do this passage that has two hands working together to be able to perform the piece, you need both hands working together. If you're trying to play a passage with your right hand, and let's say you go like pointer, middle, ring, middle, pointer, right? Just this back and forth, between these fingers. If you're having trouble just doing that, what are the odds that you're going to be able to do whatever it is you need to do with your left hand at the same time? It's pretty slim. And so what you need to do is you need to remove one hand entirely and just get that right hand working for you. And then you can work on the left hand independently, and then you can put them both together. So you have to remove variables in order to be able to play everything well. If you're a drummer, right, you might have certain things that are tough with your hands and your feet. So let's do just the hands first, or maybe even just the right hand first, and then both hands, and then just the feet, and then both the hands and the feet together. If you're a guitar player, maybe you're trying to do a big section, and it's like, okay, well, can we just do these 4 notes well consistently? Can you do the next 4 notes consistently? Now can you do notes 1 through 8 consistently? You're stacking them together. By the way, this is stuff that works across every instrument. This is not instrument specific, right? I'm just giving you common examples of like stuff that I see. You have to be willing to break them down into small bite-sized pieces. And for some people, it's, the problem they have is the inability to identify the problem. But I think more often than we're willing to admit, it's usually ego is the issue. We have this idea about how we're going to play things really well on like the 4th attempt. And, the 4th attempt, we'll have this whole song down, not a problem. But the truth is that if you add too much onto your plate, right? Like if I tell you to eat this steak and you have to eat the whole thing in one bite, right? You're not a snake. You can't just unhinge your jaw and put the whole thing down your throat and, then you're fine. You're going to choke on it, and that's a problem. And so what you need to do is you need to get out your knife and fork and you need to cut it into bite-sized pieces, and then it goes down, no problem. And the same is true when it comes to practicing these musical pieces. I can't tell you how many times I've had a student come back after a week and they're frustrated and they say, I've been working on this thing all week and I just feel like I'm not making any progress. So then what I do is I say, okay, we're going to break it down into bare bones pieces. We're going to do just these 3 notes, just these 4 notes, just this small little section, right? A measure, a half a measure even. And then we're going to see how many times it takes us to do that well, consistently, right? I usually tell them you got to be able to do it right, perfect, 5 times in a row. If you stop, if you make a mistake on the 4th attempt or the 5th attempt, guess what? We're starting your count over and we're doing it again, right? Be able to do it from memory. That's usually a good sign that you're starting to mentally absorb what's going on. Then and only then do we move on to the next section. And now you do the next, whatever the section is you've broken it down into. And people look at that and they go, that's such a small portion. I don't feel like I'm making any progress. But the alternative is that they try to do these huge sections and then they struggle just to even get to the end of like the line. And by the time they get to the end of that line, maybe they're like, it's 4 measures long or something. They can't remember what they had to do to fix the thing at the beginning. And so what was the point of even playing the whole entire line if you can't remember the first one? Frequency, how long it is between your corrections, matters so much. Your brain is wired for frequency and like time between repetitions. That's the way that it's designed. And so if you ask somebody to play a whole entire song brand new 10 times versus play each measure 10 times and then stack them together, they will learn the song that much better by doing each measure 10 times in a row, as opposed to doing the whole line or the whole song 10 times in a row. Now, in the beginning, the bites that you have to take might be really small, but eventually, as you get up to be a more experienced musician, you can take bigger bites at a time. You can do 2 measures at a time. You can do 4 measures at a time. You might be able to do an entire section, the whole verse, just do that over and over and over again, right? But that only comes with an incredible amount of experience, and it takes time. It takes time. So please do yourself a favor if you're finding yourself stuck and you can't get your hands to cooperate, your feet to cooperate, your limbs, whatever, and just break it down into smaller chunks. It feels slower at first, but believe me, the results stack up over time. It's a compounding effect, and you'll be amazed how much faster, because I might have not have finished my story before, but I'll get so many students who they'll come in after a week of not making any progress, and then we sit down and we break the song down like this into little itty-bitty chunks, and after 15, 20 minutes, they've got it. So despite practicing the whole thing for 20, maybe 30 minutes a day for the entire week, we did in 20 minutes what they couldn't do in 3 hours. And that's quite literally how effective it is. So anyways, I think I've made my point when it comes to how to break stuff into small itty-bitty sections. The last point that I'm going to touch on really quick is what happens, why some people don't feel like doing things like scales or finger exercises are worthwhile. So scales have some level of practicality to them, right? Because the idea about scales is that, okay, well, I'm going to see these things out in the wild, so I might as well train my fingers to already do what it is that I'm going to see. But then they look at exercises and they go, okay, well, I don't really understand the application there. Why would I do that? It just seems like I'm giving myself torturous exercises. But it couldn't be further from the truth, right? The idea with some of those exercises is that you want to challenge yourself beyond what you would normally have to deal with. So let's say, for example, that you want to tow a trailer, okay? And you have 2 options. You can either hook it up to your Ford Focus, or you can hook it up to your Ford F-150. The Ford Focus might be able to pull that trailer, but it's going to hem and haw, and it's going to hurt the suspension, and you might have trouble keeping it straight on the road at certain speeds and things like that. And it's going to take you forever to get from 0 to 60, and it might take you even longer to get from 60 to 0. There's all sorts of problems, right? And that's because you're working at like 90 to 100% capacity of what the vehicle is able to do, which means that you're more prone to brakes and things are going to be slower, and there's all sorts of issues. Versus when you grab the pickup truck. The pickup truck grabs that trailer, and the pickup truck is designed to pull like 4 times the amount of weight that your compact car is. And so when it grabs the trailer, it's like, oh, this is nothing because I'm only working at 25% capacity. The same thing is true when it comes to training your fingers, and for that matter, training yourself in a whole bunch of areas, which we'll talk about in future episodes. But the same thing is true with your fingers, right? If you train yourself for harder things than what it is that you're running into now, then when you go back to your regular songs, you're going to go, wow, this is a cakewalk. Like, I really don't have to think at all about what my fingers are doing. And when you can get to that spot where you can think more like in your head logically about what's going on, now you're being proactive instead of being reactive, right? You're operating at a small percentage of your physical prowess versus like working, you're revving the limiter the entire time, which is going to take strain, and you're more prone to mistakes and accidents, and it also makes it harder to recover from mistakes and accidents and things like that. So that's why exercises are incredibly valuable. It's not that they're always practical. It's that you're challenging yourself beyond what it is that you're going to actually have to tackle. And while everybody else will be struggling to do just the basics, you'll be set beyond that level. And, so if you train to lift like 100 pounds and then everybody asks you to lift 20, it's like 20 is no problem. It's a cakewalk. I can do that all day. Great. Let's do the same thing with our fingers. Let's train ourselves beyond what we need to do. Our fingers, I'm talking like a guitar player all the time. Our fingers, our hands, our limbs, the rest of our body, our vocal folds, whatever. We're going to train ourselves for control, and we're going to go beyond our normal expected capacity, which is great. And then inevitably, when you get really antsy and you decide that you want to go and do some crazy stuff, it won't be such a shock to you. So anyways, I think I've talked long enough just about technical prowess and some of the things that I've seen. I hope that this was a helpful episode for you. Again, still no Robin. She's on maternity leave for a while yet. And so I just kind of want to keep the podcasts rolling out. So I hope that these were helpful for you. If you liked what you saw, either hit the like button. If you want to subscribe to us, like us on Facebook, that would be absolutely fantastic. If you have something that you want to see me cover, comment. All right, comment down below. Let me know what you want to see. Let me know if this was helpful for you. Your feedback is always appreciated. In the meantime, my name is Alex Bennett, and I will see you all in the next episode. Later.